Please remember to like this video, comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share this video. Also, in the description of this video, you can find my compiled link. Through there, you can find my YouTube channel, Patreon, email, Your Playmat affiliate link, TCG Player affiliate link, Discord, Twitter, TikTok, and Non-Magic the Gathering YouTube channel, The CJ. Thank you for watching. How's it going, everybody? CJ here, back with another video. We're doing a first thoughts today. This first thoughts is on the Beamtown Bullies. Sorry that I haven't been able to post that much during spoiler season. I got COVID and I'm just getting over it now. So, yeah. But the Beamtown Bullies, super interesting commander here. It's a Jund commander. You can tap him to reanimate a creature from your graveyard onto your opponent's side of the battlefield, goad it, and then it gets exiled at the end step. Super cool. So you can kind of pick and choose stuff from your graveyard to force your opponents to attack. There's some interesting cards that you can utilize for this. The categories I'm going to be talking about are creatures to reanimate. Then we got self-mill cards, tutors for your graveyard, so that way you can kind of get what you really need into your graveyard to reanimate. Ways to untap, so you can utilize Beamtown Bullies more than once a turn rotation. Some cards that are good because of the fact that you're going to need all the self-mill, and a few one-off cards. And so, yeah, creatures to reanimate. The first section I'm going to talk about here are cards that have a good ETB, or for your opponents, a bad ETB. Something that your opponents will not want to happen. And those include Eater of Days, Enslaved Horror, Inverter of Truth, Leveler, Tempting Worm. A lot of those can just be game-breaking, like devastating cards, and your opponents won't be able to recover from. So, very good stuff there. You can also utilize World Gorger if you activate during your opponent's upkeep, because that can kind of just make it so they lose their whole turn, because all of their permanents get poof, gone. And so they won't really be able to do anything during their turn, and then at the end step it goes away, so it's just kind of a way to skip an opponent's turn. And you can also use Bane of Progress if your opponents have a big state of artifacts and enchantments, so that way you can just get rid of them all. Seems pretty good. And then it's going to be a huge thing that has to swing out, and it can deal a lot of damage. Seems good. Then a couple of other cards other creatures that have attack triggers that are bad for whoever's controlling the creature. Those include Anya's Ravager. That could be pretty good against like a blue player that's got a big hand. Or Ebonblade Reaper. This card seems sick. Like super cool for this deck. I've never even seen it before, but I started coming up with cards for this deck. And then the third category I want to talk about for bad cards for your opponents is Hellcarver Demon, being the only card for dealing damage to your opponents. Seems really, really powerful there. Also for creatures to reanimate, Abyssal Persecutor could be really cool as a emergency button. So you can just be like, oh, this guy's about to win the game. Let me just reanimate Abyssal Persecutor under their control. Oh, look at that. Now they can't win the game. Really cool. I think that's a really cool little include there. And then the last category of creatures to reanimate I want to talk about are cards that can work more politically. Cards that you can reanimate and have your opponents make deals with your opponents and reanimate them so that way they can take care of problem permanents or something. Those cards include Meteor Golem, Acidic Slime, Shrieking Mog, Crater Hoof. Like, hey, if I give you Crater Hoof, will you not kill me and just kill them? Yeah, that seems good. Skullwinder. Just say, hey, if I give you Skullwinder, will you pick me as the opponent to regrowth? Seems good. Fleshbag Marauder, Terastodon, Combat Celebrant. Could be fun there. Mage Ring Responder, and Dragon Mage. All of those seem pretty cool. Require a bit more politics, but that makes the deck a little more interesting. And if you want to, the first section I talked about are cards that can just end the game for a player. If you want to go in more of a political route, then cards like those seem much more nicer cards. But like Leveler, Inverter of Truth, and Eater of Days, those are awesome cards. Next up, I'm going to talk about some self-mill cards. So, some cards, because you're going to need to get these creatures into your graveyard. So some ways to do that include my personal favorite self-mill card, Mesmeric Orb. Then you have Nyx Weaver, Grizzly Salvage, Old Rustine, Old Stick Fingers. I really like Old Stick Fingers in decks like this because it just strictly mills, or strictly gets creatures into your graveyard, which is what you really need. Millikin, Hermit Druid. You can also kind of go infinite with Hermit Druid if you wanted to. Stinkweed Imp. Magus the Wheel seems kind of fun, especially because you can have untappers in the deck. Light from the Loam, being able to dredge and get back the lands that you're milling seems good. Keening Stone, Crawling Infestation, and Crawling Sensation all seem pretty great and good ways to kind of fill your graveyard up. Next up is ways to get specific cards into your graveyard by tutoring them out. Those include Gravebreaker Lamia, Vile Entomber, Gerard's Orders, Buried Alive, Entomb, Final Parting, and Unmarked Grave. Unmarked Grave works really well because non-legendary anyways because of Beamtown Bullies, so doesn't really matter. Next up are the Untappers. Being able to use Beamtown Bullies during each of your opponent's turn, or more than once in one opponent's turn, seems really good. So some of those cards include Thousand Year Elixir, Mage-Right Stone, Puppet Strings, Sereth, Staff of Domination, and Seedborn Muse. Seedborn Muse is just an amazing card. Honestly, one of my favorite cards in Commander. Probably one of the best cards in Commander, in my opinion. Next, we're going to talk about cards that work really well because you're on self-mill. So cards that can kind of utilize your graveyard. Timeless Witness, Eternal Witness, and Regrowth are all fantastic at getting things that you don't want in your graveyard back. Timeless Witness is really nice because if it goes in your graveyard, you can reanimate it, which is very helpful. Also, reanimate and stuff like that. Animate Dead, Necromancy, all those seem very good if you want to get certain things back from your graveyard. Then you have Crucible World and Robinop Excavator to get lands back. Victimize, another good reanimation spell. Chainer seems really cool. And Worm Harvest, good token creator. And you can recast it from your graveyard via Retrace. And lastly, the one-off cards. I've got a few different things to talk about here. The first one I wanted to talk about is kind of a side strategy or a main strategy if you want it to be. It requires a very different build. You're going to be wanting to throw in a lot of creatures that you actually want in play, so good creatures as opposed to a lot of bad creatures like Leveler, but good stuff. And what you got to do is you activate Beamtown Bullies on your opponent's end step right before your turn, so that way they would go under your opponent's control, and at the end of your turn, they'd get exiled. So what you do after that is during your turn, you use Homeward Path to gain control of those creatures. And then instead of ending your turn, when it goes to your end step and the trigger goes on the stack, you use Sundial the Infinite to end the turn and get rid of the triggers. And then boom, they stay on the battlefield forever. I think that's a really cool idea. You definitely want to have a lot of untappers to do this, so that way you can do it more than once and get as many creatures as possible back. And there's some interesting cards that can work well to kind of tutor out these pieces, but if you run enough tutors, it's going to be great. Hired Giant is a pretty interesting tutor for this deck because it's a card that you want to go into play under your opponent's control because each other player gets to search their library for a land, not a basic, that can go and get you your Homeward Path. And you're in black, so you're going to have a lot of tutors anyways. So there's a lot of ways to tutor out these pieces, but it could be a really cool build-around strategy with this deck. It's a cool little combo, just kind of being able to reanimate things for free, basically, as long as you have Sundial the Infinite and Homeward Path. I like it. I think it's a fun idea. Next one-off card, Rift Sweeper. Very important card for this deck because of the fact that you exile the creatures at the end step, so this can get you back something that can end a player. So it can get you back your Leveler, it can get you back your Eater of Days, and that seems pretty good. Next card is the Gitrog Monster. You got a lot of self-mill, it'll let you draw a lot of cards by lands going into your graveyard. Seems good. And the last card I want to talk about is Tortured Existence. This lets you kind of go in and out of your graveyard with your creatures from hand. So you discard a creature to grab a creature from your graveyard, so you can get rid of the stuff you want to reanimate and bring back the stuff that you don't want to reanimate yet, or stuff that you want to cast, stuff like that. Especially because self-mill gets you back what you want and lets you dump what you don't need. Seems really powerful in the deck. And that is everything I have for the Beamtown Bullies. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Peace out, everybody.